that might be the death of credit cards as we know it. So open banking has been around for a while. Talking about TrueLayer, I think really uncover how much this is important and how much that's going to play in the future. I think open banking is pretty, it has different angles, different sides of it, from security, access to data, and account verification up to payment processing. So it's a very multifaceted sort of problem.
Even though it is a UK company, the founding team is made of mostly Italian entrepreneurs.
TrueLayer extended its Series E, raising an additional 50 million in funding of about 179 million. A lot of very notable investors into the e-commerce/payment space, including Stripe, Tencent, and Tiger Global. Welcome to the Week in Italian Startup, where we discuss the latest highlights happening in the Italian tech and investment ecosystem. Right, welcome Nick to another episode of the Week in Italian Startup. A few news on different verticals, interesting week from different perspective. Let's jump right in. Starting talking about chocolate. Yeah. So interesting. Food tech. Food tech is taking an interesting twist. So let's start diving in with Foreverland, a food tech startup raising 3.4 million in a syndicate round. Which includes some of big investors and pretty new investors also. So that's pretty interesting, including Exor, 2100 Ventures, Moonstone, Grey Silo Ventures, and a few others. So from the data I gather, chocolate basically has been like on a stress point because the price of cocoa basically raised like I think up to 300% in the past months. And basically, it's something which is very, very resource consuming to cultivate. So all of this to say that the mission of these people is really to democratize the access to chocolate and make it as sustainable as possible by using alternative ingredients. So I think they're using mostly carob and they're trying to make a product as close as possible to the original chocolate by really focusing on flavor. So interesting take. The founders are really great. I met one of the founders. Basically, they've been working, I think, with the Wageningen University, which basically is one of the top food tech hub in Europe. So a lot of interesting parts, a lot of interesting elements in the right spot, and that totally reflects in the kind of investor and the fundraise that they managed to do. So very interesting. What is your take on this one?
Well, of course, I'm mostly almost a consumer of chocolate and cocoa, so I know very little about the market. But from the article, there are a few interesting points I think to discuss. One is the sustainability supply chain of cocoa, which I was not aware. Mm-hmm. With respect, for example, to carob, and I think there is some sense of resilience in supply chains. I mean, from where is cocoa grown currently? So I think Africa.
I think the article was mentioning that a lot of the production happens in Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire mostly, and the problem is the intensive cultivations there.
Yeah. And then there's this kind of wave against globalization of supply chains and so on and so forth. So it's having some kind of resiliency of locally sourced raw materials. And it is my understanding that we can grow carob at our latitudes in our area. So this is interesting. As a matter of sustainability, so sustainable agriculture and environmental impact. And from an economic point of view, in being less dependent on fragile supply chains and more resilient with locally sourced ingredients. I think I was reading a recent issue with cocoa, for example, but related to financial markets, and cocoa futures. There was a crisis in the cocoa price. So everybody was trying in cocoa production. So everybody, I think earlier this year, was trying to have physical delivery of cocoa and they were futures regarding cocoa, but they were from a low quality one. So the underlying cocoa was of a low quality one. So nobody wanted to take delivery of that cocoa, even though they needed it. So there is some fragility in the supply chains and overlaying infrastructure in the global market. So this is an interesting take because there might be an interesting future for such a proposal. But having said that, no idea. I hope it tastes good.
The angle, yeah, that's the thing. I agree, exactly. I was about to get there. So we've been looking into like a few startups related to food, and especially when it comes to alternatives to something, alternative to X kind of deals. What we've seen is that the most promising one, the people that actually are making progress are the one that actually are working really close to the original taste in a way that actually they kind of have people lower their barriers in a way that then they can transition to something alternative. It's not easy. It's not easy to change, fish, alternative fish, the taste of chocolate, even meat, like with Beyond Meat and all that. But that's kind of the lesson, right? Like if you eat like a Beyond Meat burger, it can trick a meat eater easily. So I think that can be the angle actually.
I was just mentioning, I was kind of not really surprised, but kind of by the set of investors. So other than Grey Siler Ventures, so the others are, mostly you see them in digital technology rounds. So seeing them in a food tech round of this type, this was interesting. So just wanted to mention that.
That's true. That's a good point. Are they hiding maybe a digital element we don't know yet about?
There might be, or it is a matter of heavy diversification with respect to a portfolio concentrated on digital.
Interesting. Yeah. Awesome. All right. For our AI corner, Inventio, developer of an AI solution for industrial environments, raising $500,000 in pre-seed round, participated by Club degli Investitori, CDP, and Plug and Play through Motor Valley Accelerator. So very interesting take. So essentially, Inventio is developing solutions for manufacturing. AI and manufacturing, that's probably one of the one that are going to happen in the bigger scale, and probably the quickest actually to transition toward AI solution. So my understanding is that Inventio started as a sort of business software development for manufacturing application, and now they're really quickly transition to industrial solutions. We can see, I think, and we will see probably like high velocity in that sector, because it looks like automation is something that always happens, and it's probably, people manufacturing things actually recognize like a lot of value into automation, and AI is just the next step of the evolution chain. So very interesting. What do you think of this one?
No, I agree with you that the manufacturing industry is one of the next battlefields for AI at different levels. So supporting machines to learn what to do, interacting with machines, analyzing machines. So there is a lot going on in the underground, and there are quite a few players that are addressing these opportunities from different angles. Of course, it is a slower moving industry. It will start slowly, and then it will, it will become an avalanche at a certain point as demand grows. Just because rotating a line of machinery is not something that you do year in and year out. So industrial equipment tends to stay there for quite a while. So there's a lot of investments that I expect that will be going on in order to adapt and start using AI. Still, you're right.
Yeah.
It will be the next wave of productivity in the industry. Will also come from adopting AI on the manufacturing lines. And robots. where are the robots? So we are all thinking about the robotic
So true.
humanoids that will talk to, but actually all the robots are currently on the job shop floors in the industries, and that's probably the next angle. Allow
Yeah, I
me.
mean,
I don't know whether you remember the Iron Man movie with the cooker robot that Tony Stark
yep.
was always scolding and saying bad robot. Yeah, more or less that's a possible future. A bad robot that was a wrong piece, and then the cooker robot would be like saving the day.
No, exactly.
If you
Plus,
think about it, more
on
or
top,
less we have the technology.
I mean, we're really close. We're super close to that, mimicking human emotions, but also even going further. I mean, Elon is already like working on that, so we already have like the different like humanoids that are actually functional for replacing like a few jobs and a few like basically kind of manufacturing processes. So it's definitely here. It's definitely there. Yeah, definitely. The emotional part can be like something really interesting to actually consider. Awesome.
Yeah, I don't know. I probably would, leave that out for a while, but we'll see where it goes.
All right, so let's talk about TrueLayer. So that might be the death of credit cards as we know it. So open banking has been around for a while. There has been like a lot of application happening. And talking about TrueLayer, I think really uncover how much this is important and how much that's going to play in the future. So in general, so let's talk about the round. So TrueLayer extended its Series E, raising an additional 50 million in funding. So my understanding is that they basically opened a Series E of about 179 million. A lot of very notable investors into the e-commerce/payment space, and also big names including Stripe, Tencent, and Tiger Global, just to mention a few. Of course, Italian founders based in London trying to actually crack the open banking part of the equation when it comes to e-commerce. I think the total has been 321 million raised so far since 2017, roughly. And I mean, business looks like it's definitely growing, and it's definitely like being supported by some of the biggest names. So definitely kudos to the people, and yeah, very interesting take on this one.
Yeah, yeah. For those who don't know TrueLayer and wonder why we are talking about them, even though it is a UK company, the founding team is made of mostly Italian entrepreneurs. So we are really looking forward to what they will do next.
Absolutely. And to add on top of that, so basically talking about TrueLayer a little bit, so they have basically trying to work in a lot of different fields of open banking. I think open banking is pretty, it has different angles, different sides of it, from security, access to data, and account verification up to payment processing. So it's a very multifaceted sort of problem, it looks like. On top of which, of course, you have like basically compliance that it must be, of course, as a payment processes must be like massive and a pain for sure. And what is good is that TrueLayer has been endorsed by also some of the most innovative banks, like Revolut, for example, working with TrueLayer. So definitely like a great sign for a company that's really changing one of the paradigm, which is e-commerce. I mean, if we think about it, in some of their posts, they talk about the death of credit cards in the sense that, credit cards are clunky and not made for e-commerce. And anything that happens there is basically slowing down e-commerce in general. So basically, open banking is supposed to actually also change the way customer interact with payments and banking. And I think one insight that the guys were like mentioning was that customer experience is also payment experience, and that's kind of clicks because it kind of smoothen out the onboarding, the payment, and even the refund process. So there is also big sort of a big highlight on their product on how quick they can actually get to refund, which is a very interesting angle, and definitely working toward building client trust in the quickest and smoothest possible way. So many angles, very interesting deal, very interesting company. Never consider open banking as such a complicated sort of issue, but it actually is.
Yeah, I agree. So I mean, also payments is a huge battlefield where different big players are fighting. The credit card companies are very aggressive in trying to acquire new components in the network. Also because account-to-account payments are becoming a reality. Account-to-account from bank to bank without someone intermediating. And you're right. In a sense, I think that the risk they are seeing, and possibly, is that if you remove an intermediary from the payment flow, the Mastercard or the Visa, you can maybe lower the fees. And since you fight for basis points here, just a few basis points of cost less is billions globally every year. So there's a lot going on in the payments areas.
Absolutely. And some people claim actually that open banking is going to be one of the next catalysts for another wave of innovative companies, which are we already seeing. And getting quick access to financial data and payments and quick lending. I mean, that's another layer of fintech. That's another dimension of fintech kind of emerging. So it's a very interesting enabler and catalyst of a new side of the ecosystem. So that's what's fascinating, I think. All right, let's talk about OpenAI, CDP Venture Capital, and how they partner to promote the development and the adoption of artificial intelligence in Italy. Huge news here. So recently, Altman visited Turin during the Italian Tech Week. Nick, I don't know, what is your take on that? Probably he met with the people at CDP, and then they decided on helping Italy to actually do something, which is like good news for the ecosystem for sure.
I would be surprised if it only took 1 week to set up an agreement. Not, OpenAI side, but with all the due respect and love for CDP, the people are great, but I mean, the processes are more complicated. Even though this is a huge thing. Achievement. So striking an agreement with one of the major global players in AI, hopefully seeing them actually supporting with some real effort innovation in Italy. I think the agreement has a few interesting lines over there. So I mean, a kind of signaling, official channel signaling potential investment opportunity for the startup fund. Run by the OpenAI ecosystem. It'll be interesting. Resources, education, there's relationships with university. If actually this happens, I think it would be very positive for the economy. I hope that CDP would also somehow push not just into startups and university, but also towards the industrial ecosystem, this opportunity. I mean, we need to stay competitive and productive, and this is probably one of the next wave of productivity will come from Gen AI. So huge opportunity there.
No, that's a good point. And, privileged access to resources or even a higher level of education regarding the tools that OpenAI is developing. And again, it's massive because they're basically issuing updates, new tools all the time. Right now, they just, issued the OpenAI Canva. The Canva sort of structure where actually you can see the code and you can build, and it's simplifying a lot the life of the developer. So it's going in that direction, and the pace at which they're innovating is insane. And if at least good people that are working on AI in Italy can get a peek into that, is pretty much basically it's a big advantage for the market. So definitely it's a strikingly good news. Let's see how it actually materialized. I would be really curious to see, and I would be glad to actually hear the next founders working in AI saying, hey, we've been developing this, we had help from CDP, and we had a special access to OpenAI, whatever, API or whatnot, to actually make this thing as quickly run and quickly fly. So that's what I would love to see.
Yeah. And this news comes with the announcement around the leadership team in the AI fund of CDP. So this is basically the complementary to the OpenAI announcement. I think it's a very strong team. So Vincenzo De Nicola is the senior partner leading the effort. So I think he's an excellent person to have in that position. Entrepreneur with international experience, very, very open to the world. So I'm really looking forward to what they will do there. And he has quite a bit of money to invest. So
awesome.
Italian AI startups, come on.
Let's go. Let's make it happen.
There are no excuses.